I'm at a loss as to why we're here under this timeline. The Supreme Court, and before I go here, because it's already been stated, not here but elsewhere, you don't have to have a JD behind your name. You don't have to have a Juris Doctorate to understand the plain language of the Pennsylvania and United States Constitutions. They were drafted for farmers and workers to understand. They are contracts between the people and the government they hire to write, administer, and interpret the law. That being said, Article 4, Section 15 of the Pennsylvania Constitution clearly states that there is to be a 10-day period between the legislation being passed, and this is a piece of legislation, these maps, and the time that the governor has to decide whether or not to veto that bill, let it become law, or sign it into law. The Supreme Court has shortened that from 10 days to 6 days without the consent of the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Since 1790, no change to the Pennsylvania Constitution has occurred without the consent of the electorate. The Supreme Court clearly overstepped its authority here. Secondly, on that same article, the article clearly states that anything that's vetoed by the governor has to come back to the legislature. For the for the Supreme Court to decide that they can interrupt that and take possession of that piece of legislation and draw those maps on their own, they have no constitutional authority to do so. Third, the United States Constitution specifically states that the legislature is the sole body to decide how to draw those maps. Now, if anybody here with a JD behind their name can tell me where the authority is that they can actually arrogate unto themselves that kind of authority, I'd be glad to entertain it. But you cannot do that. Our Constitution was written in very plain language. This arbitrary deadline that the Supreme Court has passed is unconstitutional. They have the right to make the decision about whether or not it's, or come to a decision about whether or not it's constitutional. The other steps that they've taken are way beyond the pale. They do not have the authority to do this. Mr. Chairman, I will vote to pass this, but I'm doing it under protest. And I hope that if the Supreme Court, which I think they're going to try and manipulate it so they end up drawing these maps, if that happens, I want it on the record that we should be filing suit in federal court to overturn them because they have no authority under the U.S. Constitution or the Pennsylvania Constitution to do so. Thank you.